Hey everyone, welcome back to another OKest Weekly recap where we cover all things handheld gaming. Another crazy week of updates. We've got a number of updates for the ROG Ally. We have two new devices that we just learned about, campaign updates for AOKZOE and AYANEO. We'll cover updates or no updates from every company to make sure that you're completely up to date on the entire PC handheld scene. And check out a sneak peek for some software I'll be reviewing this week. If you enjoy these videos, do the OKest thing and boop that like button. And if you're new here to the channel, subscribe down below. Alright, let's dive into it. We've got a few things to go over for the ROG Ally this week. We've got a hard shell case that surfaced. We've discovered the battery size from an unboxing video. And we're also going to do a comparison to the 7840U and 7540U that AMD has now officially announced. And we're going to compare those with the Z1 and the Z1 Extreme. So let's just jump into the hard shell case. So bestbuy.ca, which is the Canadian Best Buy site, showed a picture of the ROG Ally with a couple of its accessories. So we've got the soft case, we've got a controller, we've got the GPU, and then there's another what appears to be a hard shell case just above it. So it looks like this might be something that maybe we can purchase alongside it. Maybe it's another accessory. I'm not sure, but let me know what your thoughts are on this. If this case looks like something you'd want to get, or if it's something that you're just gonna pass on and just use the soft shell case that comes with. Next up is battery size. So the ROG Ally seems to have a 40 watt hour battery. Now it hasn't obviously been officially confirmed, but we got as close as we can get to that because we had a few unboxing videos that came out, and in one of the videos the guy actually takes a look at the side of the box and shows us while he's reading it out, and in that shot you can see that it has a 40 watt hour battery. So although not officially confirmed, it's about as close as we're going to get until we hit May 11th. In today's video, I'm going to do a full recap of everything that we know and things that have been leaked, but before that, let's go into the last bit of information for this week. So let's compare the 7840U to the Z1 Extreme. Looking at the 7840U and the Z1 Extreme, both of them have 8 cores, 16 threads. The base clock for the 7840U is 3.3 GHz, but we don't have that specified on the Z1 yet. The boost clock is 5.1 GHz. Both have 24 megabytes of cache. The TDP range for the 7840 is 15 to 30 watt, and on the Z1 Extreme it's listed as 9 to 30 watts. And lastly, for the iGPU, they've both got 12 compute units and are both running the 780M. Moving over to the 7540 and the Z1, both of them are running 6 cores and 12 threads. The base clock rate for the Ryzen 5 is 3.2 GHz. And 4.9 boost clock. We don't have the specifications for the Z1 yet. Both are running a 22 megabyte cache, and the TDP range of the Ryzen 5 7540 is 15 to 30 watt, and it's 9 to 30 watt on the Z1. Both appear to be using the 740M with 4 RDNA 3 compute units. When asked about the similarities between the two chips, AMD admitted that they are similar, but didn't want to discount the extra work that they put into the Z1. They said that the Ryzen Z1 series are purpose-built with handheld gaming in mind. To accomplish this, AMD engineers had to validate entirely new power ranges and optimize the voltage curves specifically for this use case. This optimization and validation work should not be trivialized. So while the technology building blocks like Zen 4 and RDNA 3 are similar between the 7040 and Z1 series, the resulting models have very distinct characteristics customized for the use cases. In addition, the AMD Ryzen AI engine is not available on the AMD Z1 series processors. Tom's Hardware followed up to ask AMD if the XDNA AI engine is fully removed or if it's just been disabled, and they responded that it's only been disabled, which means that the chips are probably identical aside from the optimizations. So I'm excited to see what this actually looks like in real life performance. I'm going to be buying one of the 7840U devices, the AOKZOE A2, and I'm also going to be picking up the Ally, so I'll be doing some benches once I get the two of them to see how this actually plays out. We had another leak this week for the ROG Ally price, this time for the price in Europe. So specifically in Germany, the article was saying that it's rumored to cost 799 euros. Now they go on to say that this could have something to do with the country's taxes and duties that they pay, so that may be accounting for the extra cost. They also mentioned that the Steam Deck in this country is 679 euros, so maybe it's just due to the import costs or whatever else is going on there that are making the devices more expensive. And of course, like usual, take this with a grain of salt until we get the official announcement on May 11th. For those that are tuning in for the first time, I want to catch you guys up to speed with everything that we know for the ROG Ally. So first up, we have the APU. So we know that it's running a custom AMD APU, and it's called the Z1 and Z1 Extreme. They're part of the Z1 series chips. The weight we know is 608 grams. For storage, we have a 2230 size M.2 SSD. That's PCI Gen 4. We're expecting a few size variants. We're looking at a 256 gigabyte, a 512 gigabyte, and possibly a 1 terabyte option. For memory, we have 16 gigabytes of LPDDR5 RAM. The display is 7 inches, 1080p, 120 Hz refresh rate with 500 nits of brightness. It has a 40 watt-hour battery. For I/O, we have a single USB-C port that's USB 3.2 Gen 2. We have a UHS-2 micro SD slot. We have a headphone jack, fingerprint sensor, and an XG mobile connector to connect to an eGPU. For price, we had a few different leaks. There's $599 for the Z1, $699 for the Z1 Extreme, both are in US dollars, and we also had a leak for a €799 model that would be coming in Europe. And of course, none of those are confirmed. We're going to find out on May 11th. I'm hoping to do a couple more videos this week on the ROG Ally. I'll probably do a video right before the May 11th announcement, and then I'm hoping to do one either the day of or the day after the announcement. So stay tuned for those. And that's all that I've got for the ROG Ally this week. Let's move on to the next device. This week I came across two potential devices that could be coming out sometime this year. The first one is from IP3 Technology, and it has a 7-inch display. It's not clear if it's 1280 by 800 or if it's 1920 by 1200, but it is a 16 by 10 screen. It comes in both white and black and apparently retails for around $600 US. Me and a friend tried to look into this further. I tried doing a number of searches and I couldn't really come up with anything aside from the company's website. And my friend checked on some Chinese websites. He couldn't find anything on his side. So we ended up finding a WeChat where he was able to talk to one of the reps and wasn't able to get any information. So I'm going to keep an eye on this one and see what comes of it. If you want to see the original video source, you can check out Pimp My Consoles video. I'll leave the link in the description. There was a second handheld that I came across. It was on Retro Dodo's website. So there's apparently an Orange Pi handheld that'll be coming out sometime later this year. It has 3 different options for your APU. You can get an AMD 7840U with 16 gigs of RAM and a 512 SSD. There's a 6800U version that they're going to be releasing, as well as a Rockchip RK3588S. Looking at the device, it's black and orange and looks a little bit similar to an AYANEO 2. At the top, if we're looking at the I/O, we have a USB-C port. There's another port that I can't really tell what it is. And then at the bottom, there is a USB-C, I'm assuming. It's labeled DC, as well as a micro SD card reader. At the back, it appears like they've added 2 rear buttons as well. So the device looks neat enough, but the part that's kind of crazy is the prices that were listed on the website. Now, these seem too good to be true, but what they have it listed as, at least in the article, is that the premium model, the 7840U, would be $430 US. The 6800 would be $290 USD, and then the Rockchip CPU is going for $215 USD. So these prices, they really do seem too good to be true, so we're gonna have to see what comes of it. No idea how they could ever sell it that cheap, but I guess we'll have to wait to see. Supposedly it may be coming out sometime in October, so I'll keep an eye on this one and I'll keep you guys up to date as I find more. This week we had a couple of updates for the Steam Deck. So we had a Proton experimental update, so Gunfire Reborn is now playable. They also enabled NV API for numerous games, including Hi-Fi Rush, Marvel's Avengers, Monster Hunter Rise, and a number of other ones. They fixed some screen tearing issues where VSync wasn't working in full screen borderless, and they also improved some loading times on Final Fantasy XIII, as well as some fixes for certain launchers or games that were not responding to exiting the game or starting up. So mostly bug fixes in this update. Our second update was an update to the beta client, mostly some input issues that have been addressed, a few bug fixes with Linux, and some general UI issues. So if you're curious about this one, take a look at the video description and take a look at the full changelog. And my last bit of news for the Steam Deck is I came across an article that now there's apparently 9,000 verified games. So they've been busy at work getting these games to be verified. Now, of course, if you have a Steam Deck, you know that games don't have to necessarily be labeled verified to work, but it's encouraging that they're still working on building the list and increasing compatibility. All right, so that's going to do it for the Steam Deck. Let's move on to our next device. Over at AOKZOE, the A1 Pro is in the middle of its Indiegogo campaign. There's 25 days remaining. So those that have been tuning into the channel for a while, you're already familiar with what their campaign is. I've mentioned it in the other weeklies. For those that are new to the channel, so AOKZOE has the A1 Pro, which looks like the A1, but it's a refresh. And it has a 7840U processor, an 8-inch screen, and you can get the option for either 32GB of RAM or up to 64GB in the top model. It has a 65 watt-hour battery as well as Hall effect joysticks. So if you're interested in this one, I'll leave the link in the video description as well as a link to their Discord where you can learn more. We've also started to see our first reviews of the A1 Pro, so we have two videos from ETA Prime. One of them is a preview and another one is a review with some game footage. And we also had a video from Taki Udon, so he goes over some emulation, some game performance, and some benchmarks, so check them out for some more information. From the video reviews, we saw the TimeSpy 3D Mark tests. They come in around 3,000, so Taki Udon got 2,967, and ETA Prime got 3,041. If you're curious about the performance for the 7840U, you may want to check out AOKZOE's YouTube channel. Even if you're not planning to buy the device, you can get a good sense. So they have a number of games. They seem to upload them every couple days where they just take a game, do a short 3-4 minute video where you can get a sense of what the performance is like. So they've covered games like Cyberpunk, Just Cause 4, Wild Hearts, Sword and Fairy 7, Grand Theft Auto, a bunch of others. So I'll leave a link to their YouTube channel. Check it out if you're curious about the performance of the new chip. And that's going to do it for my AOKZOE updates. Let's move on to the next device. On to OneXPlayer. So I actually don't really have anything for OneXPlayer. I've been looking around trying to find some updates, but there just really hasn't been anything this week. We haven't heard anything for the OneXFly, but we are expecting something hopefully in the next week or two. They did mention that there would be some sort of update in May, so we'll have to wait to see what that is. Anyway, that's it for OneXPlayer, so stay tuned for more updates in the coming weeks. Moving on to AYN, we received an update from this week that they received 100 pieces of the Loki and Loki Max boards at their office. The DVT of the Loki Mini Pro, the Mendocino version, is ready for testing, and they also said that the Loki shell mold will be entering the T1 design verification process on Friday, May 12th. So it's encouraging to see that they're moving forward with the process and now they have some boards in their possession. Some unfortunate news though is that they've had to cancel 4 of the SKUs that are a part of the Loki series, namely the Loki Mini and one of the Loki Mini Pro, the Intel version. So those that ordered those particular SKUs are going to be refunded, or they have the option to change their order to another SKU. When asked about the review units that were going to be sent out last month, they said that they still plan to send them out sometime in May, and it seems that they're still also trying to ship out to backers in May, so we'll have to watch this to see how this all turns out. And that's all that I have for AYN. Hopefully the review units are sent out soon and we're able to see some actual reviews of the hands-on device that will be shipped out. Also, hopefully the backers get their device by the end of the month and we don't experience any more delays. And that's it for my AYN updates. This week for AYANEO is a little bit quieter than usual, but we did get some information for the AYANEO 2S and the Geek 1S. We learned that pre-orders are going to be going live sometime in early May, and that there's going to be an official launch sometime within May, and there's going to be a discounted price and a voucher available for those in the Discord. The company did mention that the AYANEO 2S will be shipping out sometime in mid-June for China, and that they expect for the end of July for the international market. We also found out that sometime in mid-May they're going to be giving us more information on the AYANEO Pocket Air, so stay tuned for those updates. And that's all that I've got for AYANEO, so let's move on to the next device. This week for GPD, we have a few updates to go over, so I'm going to first cover the Win 4. Last week I had talked about a fix that GPD had presented for fixing the stuttering issue, where you could buy a programmer connected to your board and actually directly flash the chip that was responsible for the stuttering. So a number of users have been attempting this, and some good news is that it's actually a lot less dangerous than some were concerned. So you can actually flash it, and if it fails, you could just try again and again and again. There was some users that had tried numerous times before it went through successfully and had no issue. There's also a video, I think it just went live like last day or two, from the Phawx on how to do it. So if you're on a Win 4 and you haven't done this, give the video a watch and give it a try if you're comfortable enough to open up your device. If not, then you can do the CRU fix that I talked about last week. Moving over to the Win Max 2, so for those that weren't here last week, we learned that GPD was going to be releasing a refresh for the Win Max 2 with a 7840U APU. So we've got some more information this week. The Phawx and ETA Prime have both released videos showing some benchmarks and some gameplay. So if you haven't checked out their videos, I'll leave links in the video description. So for those that have been looking for 6800U versus 7840U comparisons, you know, there really isn't really anything out there except if you take footage from one video, compare it to another, and you kind of manually do it yourself. There is one video that has a little sneak peek. So the Phawx released a video called the ASUS ROG Ally Z1 secret sauce. So in that video, there's a graph that shows up that isn't labeled with what game it is, but you can see a rough performance metric in that particular setting for the Steam Deck on Windows, on SteamOS versus the 6800U as well as the 7840. So give that a check, and I'm guessing that's a bit of a tidbit on what's coming soon. One note from the ETA Prime video is he ran 3D Mark, and I typically tend to just mention TimeSpy just because I have to pick one, right? So for TimeSpy, he measured it at 35 watts and got a score of 3,418, which is pretty good. Now, I don't know what the score of the 28 watt, it's typically what other devices are running at. I don't know what score that would achieve, but it's interesting to see how much it can push out at 35 watts. But if you're looking for some other benchmarks, he did run a number of other ones, so check out that video for more information. That's really all I've got this week for GPD. I would expect some more content to be coming out in the next week, and I keep referencing other content creators because really they're usually the first to come out with this information. So check out the videos from ETA Prime and the Phawx going forward. They're likely going to have some more tests and some benchmarks. All right, so let's move on to our next device. For this week's software update, I actually wanted to do something a little bit different, so I'm giving you a teaser for a video that I'll be doing later in the week. So a company reached out to me that offers cloud gaming services, so I was a little bit hesitant to give it a review at first, just because I've had some previous experience with other services and it wasn't great. I can say though that this one has been really good. It's been low latency and a lot better than I expected. So I tried it out on my Neo 2, and as you can see on the display, it looks beautiful. It really pops with all the colors. And I also captured it with my screen capture just so you could get a better sense of kind of what it looks like. So Cyberpunk is running at ultra ray tracing settings, and honestly, with the setup that I had, I couldn't notice any latency. It was very smooth. Now, I was running with an Ethernet cable, so kind of the optimal way to play. And I also have fiber optic internet, so your mileage may vary depending on your internet connection, but stay tuned later this week. I'm going to go a lot more in depth and I'm going to test it in a few different environments. And that's all I've got to cover for software today. So stay tuned for the video and let's move on to game sales. For our game sales this week, let's head on over to deals.gg. So we have 2 free games that are both on the Epic Game Store. There's KO the Kangaroo. It's a 3D platformer similar to Mario 64, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, basically the classic 3D platformers from back in the day. And then there's Horizon Chase Turbo. I don't know much about that one. I'm assuming it's a racing game. We have a number of sales, some that are carrying over from last week. We have Yakuza Like a Dragon, which we had last week. We have Black Mesa. We have Nier Replicant, Metro Exodus for $8.50. If we head over to the historical lows, we have a few games on here at the top of the list that I'm not the most familiar with some of them, but there's RPG Maker MV for $13.30. There's Dead Island Definitive Edition for $3.29. And we have sales on multiple Call of Duty games. There's Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered for $24.99. We have Call of Duty Vanguard for $39.99. Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War for $26.39. And there's a few other games that you may want to check out. Just remember, my prices are in Canadian, so you'll need to change over to your own country. If we head on over to Steam, we can see a lot of the same games carry over, except we have the addition of Call of Duty Black Ops 3 for 67% off as well. There's also Resident Evil 7 for 60% off. If you haven't played that one, it's a great game. And we also have Guardians of the Galaxy for 70% off and Assassin's Creed Origins for 85% off. So if any of these are interesting you, check them out and let me know in the comments how they are. Okay, so that's going to do it for game sales. And that's it for this week's OKest Weekly Recap. So if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and thank you for watching.